welcome to episode 64 of the barn door restoration. Last episode, I mocked up everything on the front. I wanted to ensure things were going to fit and all these parts were correct. So that went well. So this episode, I've got some of it welded in. I was hoping to have all these pillars welded in, but I'm having a hard time saying good enough and just welding it. But I'm at that point now, I'm ready to start welding. After last episode when I had everything mocked up, one of the things I was looking for was with the bulkhead was set in its natural position, which is vertical, so perpendicular to the frame rails. I wasn't sure, I might have to tweak it forward or back to make everything line up, but it ends up, it worked out that it wants to be completely vertical. So originally I hadn't welded the bottom of the gussets in, just so I'd have that little room if I needed to. So I went ahead and welded those in. Now, I pre-drilled them for plug welds because they weld to the inner frame panel that extends up, which is 16 gauge. I wasn't confident in the spot welder, and there could be quite a bit of stress on that. So I plug welded those in, get a good strong weld, smooth the metal off, and then I spot welded it. And that way it gives that nice factory look, spot welds. Once I had that held in position, these lips on the edge, so the bulkhead has a flange forward on each side. And they were kind of, they weren't very smooth, and the bulkhead wasn't laying perfectly flat. And I didn't bother to fix that before, because if you move the bulkhead a little bit, it kind of twisted it in here. So once I had that, knowing that it needed to be straight, I was able to clamp a straight edge on here, dolly that lip out nice, weld in a few of the cracks that run them, and so that the inner B-pillar would fit on in its place. Now the inner B-pillars, they spot weld on, so the flange that comes forward on the bulkhead spot welds down this edge, and then they spot weld, there's a flange in that spot welds to the bulkhead. And the beam across the top of the bulkhead has 3 flanges with spot welds. Also, this bulkhead panel goes up, it rolls over the top and captures the top of the beam, flange on the beam. And where that metal rolls over and hits the B-pillar, it's welded in there. So there's a gob of weld, probably stick welded. So weld on each side. So I did that. Now, when I place these, there's only one spot forward and back they go because of the way they land on the lips and everything. But you do have a height adjustment. Now this side, height matched my 64, so I used those for measurements to weld it in. The other side, if you've watched some of the early videos of the bulkhead, I discovered it was in crooked. And I think it was like 7 millimeters high on the left side, something like that. And so I did put it back level and adjust that to the same as this side. Since this side matched my 64, I figured that was the correct height, so I did them both the same. So now it's going to be a little straighter than it was new, but I did find on the bulkhead this flange that comes forward here. I think that was bent on after the initial pressing. I think they pressed it, all the ribs in it, and they bent the 2 flanges on. And it doesn't X measure correctly. So those 2 flanges are straight, but if I X measure across the bulkhead, they're off quite a bit. So they were bent on a bit of an angle. But everything is off on these. They weren't accurate. There's a lot of discrepancies, which kind of gives me problems because I like things to be perfect, and they're not. And that's part of the reason why I took so much time trying to get this all right. So I was trying to make it perfect, and it never was. So after the B-pillars are installed, that was a fairly easy part. I had a lot of work to do on the A-pillars. Last episode, I had to bend both of them. This one I had to cut, bend it in a little bit. This one I hadn't finished it, so I was able to bend it back out. So I got those fixed up. So I had a lot of metal work to do, clean them up. I also had the nuts, encased nuts in here for the mirror which I thought I had laying here. But anyway, the mirror bolts on here, and I forgot to put those nuts in. So I drilled those, cut a hole in the back, put the nuts in, welded that back in. So I got the A-pillars all finished off and set them in. I should mention something I discovered quite a while back. These brackets on the end of the inner valance were originally welded to the A-pillars. So they were spot welded to the A-pillar inner piece before the outer piece was welded together. And then when the sides went on, this bracket just slid into the valance and then was spot welded in. Which actually would work quite nice if you knew exactly where to weld that. Because I didn't do it that way, the A-pillar actually doesn't fit in the hole, because the A-pillar is slotted over the floor, so it's got to go in. So there's a lip here on this bracket I had to bend in a little bit, and the floor here I just kind of rolled up slightly. Not a lot, but it allowed me to slide it in there. Now, it wouldn't matter, even if I'd known this before I had welded it on, I still would have done it this way. And the reason is, there's no way I could get this welded on accurately enough. You know, if I had a new old stock A-pillar with that bracket on it, I could have made a jig and matched them. But I wouldn't dare to weld them together without, without fitting them. So the way I did it's the way I would have had to do it anyway. Even if I'd known ahead of time, I would have done it this way. So set the pillars in, set the drip rail on, and clamped it. Now I knew where the drip rail fits according to the inner B pillars, because they're identical to my 64, so I matched those up. And this width, these points here, are taken off my 64 for the width of where the windshield frame rolls around this lip here. So I knew where the corners of that was going to be, the width. So it gave me my width. And then back and forth here, I was able to measure and match that to my 64. Now, the problem with matching it to 64 is that it is terribly crooked in the front. It has no collision damage. All the valance and all this is all original. Had a couple little patches, not much. All the A-pillars are original. So it was bent, it was built crooked. And on my 64, between left and right, there's like 4 millimeters difference in width here. And at this hinge, it's actually 10 millimeters wider on the driver's side than it is the passenger side. Which is probably why, if I look at it, the driver's side's got a lot more door gap here. The passenger side fits kind of nice. Driver's door side has quite a gap. Not uncommon to see that in buses. The doors usually don't fit well in the front. And if they had that kind of tolerances, I guess that's why they don't fit good. Again, my 64, like up in this area, especially up in here, all it got was media blasted and painted. There was no rust in any of this. Now, it did have the dash changed because it was chopped up badly, which could have affected some a bit, but really it was surprising it was off that much. So what happens is, trying to take this and match it to using the 64 as a pattern, it's hard to tell what it was supposed to be, right? With such a difference between side to side. Now, there's a few things I get a good idea of. The passenger side door fits better than the driver's side, so I'm using the passenger side measurements. The 64 doesn't X measure, it's crooked on the front, which is a little surprising because the windshield frame and the front nose also have to kind of twist. But if I look at how the lip rolls around, it's not even side to side, so it was actually a bit off. And these, again, weren't accurate. And what I'm having trouble with is just picking that spot where it's saying, well, that's good enough, I'll weld it in. I keep trying to make it perfect. And it's not that I'm trying to make it perfect, I'm just scared that it's not going to be good enough. So, but I know that at this point, everything is going to fit and it's going to look good. And it'll probably be straighter than it was when it was new. But it is a tricky thing because everything moves around so much. And I bet if I had 10 buses, they'd all measure differently. So where it stands now, these A-pillars are in spot. They're in their correct position. I'm ready to weld them in. Now I drilled the bracket for plug welds. There's no way to get a spot welder in there, so that'll be plug welded in. And there's two lips here that'll be plug welded also. This is all covered by metal, so you can't see anything anyway. The floor will be tapped down, and then it gets welded around the edge of the floor to seal that off. The tops up here, all there is on this is a couple spot welds and a little flange to the drip rail. The strength of this is gained from the other parts coming into it, welding into it, and then spot welding to the drip rail. And probably what I'll do is, after some of those components are in, I will drill from the top and put a few more plug welds in before the roof goes on, just to make sure that's really good and strong. And it's the same sort of thing with the B pillars. There's a little flange of spot welds, but then the other parts come in and all weld in also to give it the strength. So that is all I've accomplished for this episode. Next episode, I'll getting the A-pillars all welded in. So I'll weld them top and bottom. The dash beam, I have a little concern that it has moved a bit when I restored it. When I welded on it, it kind of straightened some. And that it's a little too wide now to fit in here. I don't think that's the case, but I want to ensure that, try and get some confirmation on that before I actually weld it in. So I don't know if I'll have the dash beam welded in next episode or not. I did get the channels for the door seal. I got those made up that go on here. And they just spot weld on. So hopefully I'll have those welded in. Barndoor door seals, I have this extra piece. The later splits don't have. So it spot welds in the channel. And it goes in there and it covers the end of the hinge pocket. The later splits, the dash covers the end of the hinge, so you don't see it. So that's one little difference on the Barndoor. Drawings. I upload drawings for both inner B pillars. There was a difference I noticed. So this section here, there's a little pocket on the inside, and that's where the semaphore sets in. And they changed, so the Barndoor, it seemed to be the same from the Barndoor right up until around 63. My 64 doesn't have that little bulge, it's flat on the back. And they probably changed that in late 63 when they changed the door latches. And they changed that, the inner pillar piece, they probably changed this at the same time. So I'm assuming at 63 was the changeover to remove that little bulge. The left side inner B pillar is off 61, and it was all correct. I just had to add the parts for the semaphore to it, but it had the right shape. That 64 is flat. One thing, doing drawings for things like those pillars, there's a lot of curves to them. It's very hard to figure that out by using a tape measure. So one of the things I do is I print them out at 1:1 scale and just tape the sheets together. And then I can lay that down on a table, set the part on it, and make sure it has the right shape. So I get the right curve, make sure everything's positioned correctly. There's a lot of detail on there I wanted to get just right. So it's the way usually what happens is I do a rough sketch of it, measure it, draw it up, make a drawing, print it out, and then from that I start tweaking the drawings until I get it the right shape. And then I can, and then I wait till I install it and make sure I didn't have to make any changes to it. Also, I did make a slight update to the bulkhead, but probably not enough to make a difference to anyone. I widened the bottom a couple millimeters, narrowed the top, I think 1 millimeter, just to make everything fit properly. And I upload the changes for that. Any time using any of my drawings on GrabCAD, it's best to make sure you're using the latest version. So if you've downloaded them and a few months later decide to build a part, best to go back and check to see if it's a newer version has been uploaded. Usually not that big a deal, like that bulkhead change, no one would ever notice. Some of them are. That wraps up this episode. Next episode, I get a bit more welded in up front. Thanks for the comments, I really appreciate them, and thanks for watching.